Right now, somewhere in your brain, a story is being erased. Not slowly, not gently. Almost the instant you open your eyes, it's gone. You lived an entire experience last night, maybe a strange one, maybe a terrifying one, and within minutes, most of it will vanish completely. And here's the strange part. You didn't forget it because it wasn't important. You forgot it because your brain, on purpose, made sure you would. Tonight, you're going to dream again. Statistically, you'll have several dreams, some lasting 20 minutes or more. And yet, tomorrow morning, you'll probably remember almost none of it. Maybe a fragment, a face, a feeling you can't explain. That's it. The rest simply disappears, like it was never there at all. For decades, scientists assumed this was just a glitch, a random failure of memory. But newer research tells a very different story. Your brain isn't failing to save your dreams. In many cases, it's actively working to delete them, and understanding why reveals something unsettling about what happens inside your skull every single night. For most of the 20th century, the dominant explanation had nothing to do with brain chemistry at all. It was psychological. Sigmund Freud famously argued that dreams were repressed desires disguised in symbolic form, and that forgetting them was the mind protecting itself from uncomfortable truths. That idea shaped popular culture for generations. Dream dictionaries, therapy sessions, the whole notion that a forgotten dream was secretly hiding something you weren't ready to face. It's a compelling story. It's just not one modern neuroscience has been able to confirm. When researchers actually started scanning sleeping brains instead of just theorizing about them, a much more mechanical and, in some ways, more fascinating explanation began to emerge. To understand the forgetting, you first have to understand where dreams actually come from. Most of your vivid, story-like dreams happen during a stage of sleep called REM, rapid eye movement. During REM, your brain is almost as active as when you're awake. Brain scans show intense activity in the visual cortex, the emotional centers, and the areas responsible for memory. Your eyes dart back and forth beneath closed lids, as if you're watching something happen in real time. In a sense, you are. But here's the twist most people never learn in school. While your brain is wide awake internally, your body is essentially paralyzed. It's called REM atonia, a built-in safety switch that stops you from physically acting out what's happening in the dream. Your mind is running a full simulation, and your body is locked out of it completely. So if the dreaming brain is this active, why can't we hold on to what it creates? The leading explanation comes down to chemistry. During REM sleep, levels of a neurotransmitter called norepinephrine drop dramatically, almost to zero. Norepinephrine is critical for forming new long-term memories while you're awake. It's part of the system that tags an experience as worth keeping. Without enough of it, the brain struggles to properly encode what's happening into memory that will survive past waking up. In other words, you're not just dreaming, you're dreaming in a chemical environment that's almost designed to prevent you from remembering it later. This is where most explanations stop, but it's not the whole story. Because if dreams were simply unmemorable by default, waking up in the middle of one shouldn't change anything. Yet it does, dramatically. Sleep researchers have found that if you wake someone directly out of REM sleep, they can often recall their dream in vivid, complete detail. Wake that same person up just a few minutes later, after they've drifted into the next sleep stage, and the memory is largely gone. The dream didn't fade slowly. It was erased almost instantly the moment the brain shifted state. That single detail changes everything. It suggests dream forgetting isn't really about the dream being weak or unimportant. It's about timing, a narrow window that closes fast, and a brain that isn't built to preserve what happened inside it once that window shuts. So what's actually happening in that transition? Researchers point to how memory works in stages. First, an experience is briefly held in short-term memory. Then, ideally, it gets consolidated, transferred into longer-term storage, often with the help of a brain structure called the hippocampus. That consolidation process depends heavily on stable, coordinated brain activity and specific neurochemical support. During REM sleep, several of the systems required for that handoff are suppressed, so the dream is experienced, briefly held, and then, as you move into deeper stages of sleep or wake up hours later, it simply never gets filed away permanently. It's less like a file being deleted and more like a document that was open but never saved. There's a fascinating theory that goes goes even further, and it flips the entire question on its head. What if forgetting isn't a failure at all? What if it's the whole point? Some researchers believe REM sleep isn't primarily about producing memorable stories. It's about processing emotional information, rehearsing threat scenarios, or helping the brain regulate mood. And the story you experience is more like a side effect of that deeper processing. Under this view, your brain doesn't need you to remember the dream, because the dream was never made for your waking mind in the first place. It was doing its job internally, and once that job was finished, there was no biological reason to keep the footage. This idea gets support from another strange fact. Some studies suggest that certain brain regions involved in memory encoding, including parts of the prefrontal cortex, show reduced activity during REM sleep. That's the same region heavily involved in the kind of self-aware, reflective thinking you use to consciously store an experience while you're awake. If that system is turned down during dreaming, it makes sense that dreams would slip away almost as fast as they arrive, not because something is broken, but because that circuit was never fully switched on to begin with. Which raises an obvious question. If forgetting is so built in, so deliberate, why can some people remember their dreams in incredible detail almost every single night? This is where it gets genuinely surprising. Dream recall isn't fixed, it's trainable. People who keep a dream journal, writing down anything they remember the instant they wake up, often see their recall improve dramatically within just a few weeks. Researchers believe this works because of how the recall window functions. Remember that fragile period right after waking, when a dream can either be locked into memory or lost forever. The act of immediately focusing on it, even for a few seconds, appears to be enough to push it past that fragile threshold and into more durable memory. It isn't magic, it's simply giving the fragile short-term version of the memory a second chance to get processed before the brain moves on and the window closes for good. Skip that step. Get out of bed, start scrolling your phone or thinking about your morning schedule, and that same dream, one you might have described in perfect detail 30 seconds ago, can vanish almost completely within minutes. There's also a personality and lifestyle angle. Studies have found links between higher dream recall and traits like a tendency toward more waking-related mind wandering, as well as certain sleep patterns, such as waking up more frequently during the night, which naturally creates more of those wake directly out of REM moments, where memory has its best chance to catch the dream before it disappears. Meanwhile, people who sleep through the night with little disruption may simply have fewer of those windows at all, and lose far more dreams as a result. So the difference between someone who says, "I never dream," and someone who remembers 3 dreams a week isn't that one brain is dreaming and the other isn't. Everyone dreams. What differs is how many times their memory gets a chance to catch it on the way out. And that leads to the biggest reveal of all. For most of human history, we assumed dreams were meant to be remembered, that forgetting them was some kind of loss, a failure of the mind to hold on to something meaningful. But the science increasingly points somewhere else entirely. Your brain appears to be built, quite deliberately, to let dreams go. The chemistry that normally locks in a memory is dialed down on purpose during REM sleep. The brain regions responsible for reflective, story-building memory are quieted, and only the dreams that survive are the ones that happen to catch you in that brief, fragile moment right as you're waking up, a kind of biological accident that just barely beats the system designed to erase them. So every dream you've ever forgotten wasn't lost because it didn't matter. It was forgotten because in that moment, your brain had already decided it didn't need you to remember it, even if it needed you to have it. And maybe that's the real mystery worth sitting with. Every single night, your mind creates entire worlds, entire stories, complete with fear, joy, and impossible logic that only makes sense while you're inside it. And then, on purpose, lets almost all of it disappear before you ever wake up enough to say goodbye.